Good morning, everybody.
The first talk today is themed Rethinking Leadership for Sustainable Economic Growth. And no other person that we have seen that will be able to do justice to this today other than the man that we know. It's been a blessing, particularly to this generation. His name is Mr. Charles Okeibunor. I would like to invite him to the podium and then he will be duly introduced. Please, let's give a round of applause as we invite Mr. Charles Okeibunor.
Charles is a lawyer, mediator, negotiator, and workplace relationship management expert who developed a model for workplace transformation called IRMP. In the last 9 years, he has committed an average of 9,883 hours in researching and facilitating programs connected with effective people management techniques in institutions across the world. Over 6,000 professionals have sat under his facilitation. He has trained and consulted for private and public concerns in telecommunication, health, insurance, tax, oil and gas, education, hospitality, and security sectors. He is a corporate advisor to frontline decision makers and top-of-the-mind trainer to professionals at all levels. Charles has undergone 125 hours of coach-specific training and has over 100 hours of coaching experience. He has coached C-suite executives in Australia, South Africa, United States of America, Egypt, Hungary, and Nigeria. His vision is to build organizations to last by using the IRMP model to positively transform them. He has authored 25 books and spoken at a TEDx event. Let's give a warm LLC welcome to Charles Okeibunor.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. A great opportunity and privilege to be here, and only God could have done it. So let's give the Lord a round of applause. I want to thank the convener and my elders that I see here in the front row, many of whom for years have mentored me and taught me in ways that have shaped me and brought me to where I am able to have this conversation with us. I hope that in the course of this discussion, one song which the convener taught us some 6 years or 7 years ago will resonate for the next generation. It said, it only takes a spark to get the fire going. It only takes a spark. It doesn't take fuel, a tanker of fuel, In other words, you don't need a cup of salt to make a pot of soup. What do you need? Just a pinch of it. So that as we begin to have this conversation today, I want you to think in terms of being the spark. Look out for the spark, not the tanker of fuel. Look out for the spark, because it only takes a spark to get the fire going. Rethinking leadership. Rethinking leadership for economic growth. That basic principle of economics is simply about production and wealth generation. And the moment we miss the element of the production and wealth generation, we continue to play catch up. The lender is the servant. The borrower is the servant of the lender. It doesn't matter if you have 100 PhDs. So the conversation today is to switch your position at the table. So when I saw the topic, rethinking leadership for economic growth, the first thought that came to my mind is, what thoughts brought us to where we are today? What sort of thoughts gave birth to where we are today? So in the course of this conversation, I want you to look at yourself from two dimensions, from the micro and the macro. Don't think about others, think about what thoughts brought me to where I am today. You are a summary of your thoughts, because it is your thoughts that give birth to your decisions. True or false? So, if you talk about rethinking leadership, let's talk about how we were thinking before. And the first way we were thinking before, you see, Nigeria has different ages. We had the pre-colonial age. So before we blame the colonial masters, let's talk about the pre-colonial age. Then we had the colonial age. And then we have the post-colonial age. What was the sort of thinking in the pre-colonial age? Primitive thinking. Basic. Eat, drink, live and die. Primitive thinking. Trade by barter. I give you yam, you give me tomatoes. Very primitive. Basic thinking. Just enough to get by. You don't trouble me, I don't trouble you. Let's just all go. What I want is tomatoes. What you have is firewood. Drop your firewood. In fact, they didn't used to stand by what they had. They just went to the market, I understand, or in front of their houses, kept what it is they had, and put whatever the value. So when people came, they saw the value, they dropped the value and took it. When it metamorphosed into the market, then they will come to the market with what they have. That what they had was their own currency of exchange. Primitive. It did not matter how much resource they had. So you didn't think of the fact that I may have 152 bars of yam, but what I need critically now is a cup of salt. And if the person who has a cup of salt tells me that the only way he can exchange a cup of salt is for 102 bars of yam, what am I going to do? It does not look commensurate, but what I need is a cup of salt. So I'm going to give him my 102 bars of yam. Move that to the parochial thinking. The parochial thinking is different from the primitive thinking. The parochial thinking is narrow. This is how we've been doing it. Do you know they asked a woman, a child asked her mother, why is it that you cut the chicken ribs, fold it before you put it in the oven? She said, that's the way my mother did it. Okay. They traveled for holidays and they met the grandmother and they said, the grandmother, why is it that you cut the chicken ribs, fold it before you put it in the oven? She said, that's how our own mother did it. Now, who are they going to ask? The mother said that's how her mother. Grandma says that's how her mother did. Now, they saw an old auntie. So they walked up to their aunt and said to her, Mama, why do we cut the chicken ribs, fold it before we put it in the oven? She said, oh, in those days, the ovens were very small. The ribs won't fit. So you cut, fold, and put it inside. So now, even with big ovens, they still cut, fold, and put it inside. It's parochial thinking. It's the way we've been doing it. Let us do it like that. What's the consequence of primitive and parochial thinking? The consequence is that you can be sitting on a gold mine and still be living in penury. That's the consequence of primitive and parochial thinking. It doesn't matter how much you're worth if you don't know. What big difference does it make? So, primitive thinking and parochial thinking in the face of enormous wealth enabled colonialism. Because suddenly they came and they found out that These people are really sitting on wealth. They don't even know what to do with it. So let's come with might and right. Where there was no cooperation, compulsion was used. And when you look at that photograph, you would notice that even our own people, we were complicit. We exchanged people for bottles of wine. We exchanged people for knives. When we saw the white man with a cigarette, we exchanged human beings for a pack of that cigarette, for the pipe. Slave markets. So we were complicit to colonialism. So before you blame colonialism, understand the complicity that gave birth and propagated colonialism. The way we're thinking. That your father will think that he didn't mind letting you go because he had 14 children just for a bottle of gin. That gave birth to exploitation. The mindset of our people was exploited as a result. So in spite of economic boom, remember, there was so much because of primitive thinking and parochial thinking, all that attracted colonialism. You know, let's put this in clear terms. Have you ever wondered why you go through red light streets? You know, that's where prostitutes are. You notice that they're just walking around, stopping strangers. When we are coming back from vigils and we pass those districts, I used to ask myself, are they not afraid? They just stop any stranger. What if he's a ritual killer? Someone who thinks he has nothing, feels he has nothing to lose. But if you who is coming from a vigil, if your car becomes faulty on a lonely road, your heart will race faster than it is now. True or false? It's going to race faster. You will be more circumspect. You're thinking of your phone. You're thinking of your money in the car. You're careful because of your worth. So, in other words, if parochialism and primitive thinking attracted colonialism, it means that even in time of colonialism, there was a boom, but no one of us could benefit from it because it was being transferred. They sold them, transferred the men who could work to the slave farms, transferred palm oil and the rest. Whatever we had was not for us. You know, when you walk into a bank and the cashier is rude, I heard a friend of mine say to me, what is the anger of this teller? Is it that the money she's counting is not her own? Are you following? Why is she not nice to me? Is it that there's so much money being counted on the counter and none of it belongs to her that she's so unfriendly? So in Africa, we have been thinking like that so much. Contentment mixed with ignorance is foolishness. I know scripture says godliness and contentment is great gain. Don't forget, it is godliness and contentment that is great gain, not just the word contentment. Contentment with ignorance is foolishness. So being content with so little in a time of plenty, exchanging lives for so little, seeing your oil being taken across border and still feeling comfortable like the Warren chiefs, was foolishness. You know, I wrote the biography of Professor Konjo. Professor Konjo is the father of Okonjo Iweala. Now, he told me a story of how for 100 years there was a tussle for the stool of the land. 100 years. Now, part of that story and that is relevant to us is this. Whenever the colonialists came into a system, they looked for who was loyal. It didn't matter whether it was legal. It was about who was loyal. So if this person is loyal, they pitched their tent with the loyalist and gave the loyalist every support he needed for their oppressive tendencies to succeed. So when they came, it didn't matter that this person on the stool had killed. Here's a story. You'd love it. The man was a king and he had 4 sons. But before any one of his sons attained majority, which is like 18 years, he died. His younger brother now said, I will be a regent. A regent will take over position until the real heir matures. Does it make sense to you? Now, the real heir matured and went to his uncle, who is now a regent. Uncle, you know, my father died. I am now 18 years old. It is time for me to assume my father's throne. He said, no problem. Let's plan it. You're right. Let's plan it. And they planned for the investiture. And when he came for the conversation, they never heard from him again. He was clubbed to death and disposed. Immediately that happened, their mother took the remaining sons, disappeared to her father's place to preserve the lineage. But when the colonialists came and saw that one, they said, no, as long as you support the cause, you are the right person. And so they began to perpetrate. He died, his son became, and suddenly history was being obliterated. It took 100 years for the truth to be established. If this is annoying you, if this is provoking you, because you see, we may be in 2021, but there are still some of us who are thinking in parochial and primitive ways. Primitive ways, basic ways. Parochial ways, narrow ways. Colonialist ways, thinking that unless somebody with a different skin appears, it's not valuable. Unless it's foreign, it's not real. That's a colonialist thinking. Because you're not looking at the merit and the intrinsic quality. You are looking at the location. So economic growth, someone can bring you something of great value, but the moment you know where it's coming from, you say no. Or you begin to negotiate beyond the real value because it is coming from a localized source. Colonial thinking. So you're thinking far. No, don't think far. Think now. Are we together? If all of this upsets you, think about prebendalism. Looks like a large word, but I tell you what it is. After the colonialists saw that colonialism was no longer popular, a lot of things began to change across the world. And they began to hand the realms of governance to the people. But there's a difference between what you have and what you need. There is a difference between power and authority. Is somebody following me? When I traveled to Cape Town some years ago, I discovered that you can have power and not have authority. The whites in South Africa have economic power. They don't have official authority. They don't have office. They can't win an election, but they have the economic power. They run the country economically. So you need to know which one you really want, so as not to be deceived if you want to reposition for the future. Don't be on a rat race for something that won't count tomorrow. Prebendalism in this context was that when they now gave us government, we began to oppress one another. That's internal colonialism. instead of wealth to now be spread, it was now the haves and the have-nots. Different hospitals, same sickness. Things haven't changed. The economics indices hasn't changed. The average person didn't have an opportunity more than he did when the colonialists were in power. It was prebendalism. Is somebody following this? How were we thinking? Is all I wanted. That's the foundation I wanted to lay. The prebendalism of somebody taking more than they need. You know, you've heard it before. That there is enough for every need, but not enough for everyone's greed. So when somebody says it's not enough, don't say it's true. Say why. Did you get that? When someone says it is not enough, don't just admit and say it is true. What should you ask? Why? Because there's always enough for everyone's need. Hardly enough for everyone's greed. Are we ready for a song? Are we ready for a song this afternoon? Would you like to listen to a song? How many of us are ready to listen to a song? I want you to just listen intently to this song. Listen intently to the words, because they won't be written on the screen. But afterwards, we'll have the conversation. Let's see the impact of this prebendalism on where we are today and what it is we ought to be.
Mistakes during the oil boom, not knowing that was our doom. chance to grow. Let's join our hands to farm the land so we can have enough food to show. Let's save Nigeria so Nigeria won't die. Which way Nigeria? Which way? Which way Nigeria? Which way to go? Way to go. I love my fatherland. Oh sure. I want to know. Yes, I want to know. Which way Nigeria is heading to? Our ambition to be millionaires is running the country down. We all want to be millionaires and to live in the end. Oh, let's save Nigeria so Nigeria won't die. Which way Nigeria? Which way Nigeria? Which way to go? Which way to go? I love my fatherland. Oh yeah, I want to know. Yes, we want to know. Which way Nigeria is heading to? Remember that a simple step is the beginning of 1,000,000 miles. Let's start right now to rebuild ourselves so as to make the country smile. Let's save Nigeria so Nigeria won't die. Which way Nigeria? Which way? Which way Nigeria? Which way to go? Which way to go? I love my fatherland. Oh sure. I want to know. Yes, I want to know. Which way Nigeria is heading to? Heaven and earth will pass away. It is written in the book of God. The good people will surely find their ways, and the meek will inherit the world. Let's save Nigeria so Nigeria won't fall. Which way Nigeria? Which way Nigeria? Which way to go? Which way to go? I love my fatherland. Oh yeah, I want to know. We want to know. Which way Nigeria is heading to? Which way Nigeria? Which way? Which way Nigeria? Which way to go? Which way to go? I love my fatherland. Oh yeah, I want to know. Yes, I want to know. Which way Nigeria is heading to? One more time. Which way Nigeria is heading to? Let's save Nigeria. Which way Nigeria is heading to? Oh yeah. Which way Nigeria is heading to? Which way Nigeria is heading to? One more time. Which way Nigeria is heading? Amen.
I don't know what resonated with you the most, but it seems like the song was sung yesterday. True or false? Prebendalism. It has led to a state of inertia. That's it, inertia. Nothing's happening. Nothing has changed. So that if you left Nigeria 25, 30 years ago and you came back, you can still connect with the stories. The thinking that is inertia is neither parochial nor primitive or instigated by colonialism, but is, let's just go with emotion. Let's just go with emotion. Living each day. You know, there is a difference between existing and living. The state of inertia is a state of existence. It's just existing. Ariel Sharon, the former prime minister of Israel, was in inertia for nearly 13 years. They just kept him on the machine. But for economic growth, how should we begin to think? What are the catalysts And if for any reason you forget how I opened this conversation, don't think about your leader, think about yourself. You need to lead yourself. There's no leader that dropped from the sky. The leader was picked from one of the followers. Tomorrow's leader is today's follower. True or false? No one's going to solve our problems for us. When I was sharing a broadcast about this meeting for others to join, I said, whether you stay in Nigeria or you leave, Nigeria is our motherland. You can't change history. A man whose name was Nobe, which is a local name, who got abroad and changed it to Nobel. You can change your name. You can't change your DNA. Cream can change your skin even. But it can't change your DNA. So let's go back. The catalyst for rethinking leadership for economic growth. Look at the very first one. Look at the very first one. Because you see, I want us to move from inertia. I don't know if there's someone who's ready to move from inertia. Move from inertia. Inertia is a state of you've heard. In fact, you might have heard so much bad news. When you even hear bad news, you don't even feel it anymore. You know, they've kidnapped. The popular one was the Chibok girls. Dapchi. Now, when you even open the news, you read 100 boys have been kidnapped in Kaduna. You will move to the next page. Inertia. You have become so used to abuse that it doesn't hurt you anymore. It doesn't provoke your senses anymore. That's inertia. Because when you are used to the way things are, even when they have a possibility of it, you can't see it. It is a darkness that is worse than blindness. So, the really first thing that came to my mind that can help catalyze the leader towards that concept of rethinking is what I call trust. What's your trust quotient? When I was talking to the Nigerian police, I said to them, you know, if your a average citizen is driving past and you stop his car, if you smile at him, what's he going to do? Okay, let me do a social test. If a policeman stops you on the road and as he stops you, he smiles at you, what are you going to do? Huh? Okay, it's a social test. If a policeman smiles at you when he stops you and you will frown, let me see your hand up. If you will smile, let me see your hand up. If you don't know which one you will do because you are not expecting this question, let me see your hand up. When the policeman stops you, as he's stopping you, you're frowning. What's he stopping? What do they want? When he smiles at you, you frown. Okay, those who are voting, they started thinking, they are beginning to rethink it. If for any reason your papers are not complete, your driver's license is expired, there's no fire extinguisher, and they've stopped you, what are you going to do? So look, and now those who are smiling, why they were smiling? You will smile, and when you smile, what will the policeman do? He will frown because he knows this one you're feeling happy. Show me your papers. What does that mean really? It is a sign of mutual distrust between both people. I don't trust you. You're stopping me. I don't trust you. Your papers are never complete. Even when they are complete and you feel like I'm not cooperating, you say, pack, stay there. Then you start to attend to other people. I can't move. You're carrying a gun. Mutual, I told them, I said, there's a mutual distrust. That should be your major concern. That when even a person is in a state of emergency, the only reason they will call you is because they have no other option. You are the last port of call instead of being, you are the last resort instead of being the first port of call. Does it worry you? That when they tell you, I say, well, do you know what your name is? They say Nigerian Police Service. I say, no. This is your name. That's what you call yourself. That's what's in the whatever, the signboard and your ID card. But your name is come today. They told me come tomorrow. I say, hey, that's your name. Nobody believes that when they come to you, they will get what they want. Mutual distrust. When I came back from Dubai some years ago, I found Nigeria has only two problems. Only two. Write it down. Leaders who have no shame and followers who are not united. Summary of our problems. So we want to rethink leadership for economic growth. How trustworthy are you? Because if you can be trusted, then more will be entrusted to your hands. What you have today is a measure of how much is your trust quotient. That I can give you advance and know that you will come for my occasion is because I trust you. That I can pay you before delivery is because Charlie said, he went to the banks. We asked him a question. We said, sir, at what point did you know you had broken through? You have many testimonies. You have so many stories of when did you feel you had broken through? He said, I felt I had broken through the moment I realized that if there's any amount I need to raise, I don't need the collateral to raise it. Because I asked God, Father, let there not be an opportunity I need to take, and I can't take it because of my current economic muscle. So I went to every bank I owe, and I said, I want zero credit. They said, no, sir. Zero credit. No, it's okay. How much am I owing? 200 million. He paid. Went to another bank. I want zero credit. They said, no, we don't. It's not our policy. How much do I owe? Give me back my collateral. He paid. The first bank that called him and said, we'll give you zero credit. Zero credit means if I want 1 billion, you won't ask me for collateral. Because Charis is the only organization with a credit line from the US government. And he says, if I say I will pay you on Thursday, if you have not seen the money at 4 p.m., don't worry. It's still, if you have not seen it at 11 p.m., don't worry. It's still 11:59. If you can be trusted, more will be entrusted. Natural implication, economic growth. Rethinking leadership for economic growth. Test your trust level. Can I be trusted in this business? Can I be trusted in this position? Can I be trusted at this level? How much can I be trusted? Can anyone turn their back and say, I know what he can do? Or would they be watching me with a tracker? Watch. And until I deliver, before their blood pressure will come down. Don't say you can be trusted. In law, we call it Pax sunt servanda. Parties agree. You sign documents. The reality is that document we are signing is because we don't trust each other. So just in case you have this brainwave, I say, no, now, they say, come. See what you sign. The greatest deals, the greatest elements of economic growth are not on paper. Before you see it on paper, it was closed on the table of trust. That paper is a formality for compliance purposes. That is why even when you have every other thing, if that table of trust has not been sorted, you may have met all criteria. And so Nigeria has everything. Locally, internationally, underground, above the ground, onshore, offshore. But because there's no trust, we can't stop borrowing. You know the second element to catalyze economic growth? It is your anticipation skills. If there's anyone here who can play the game of chess, I just want you to learn it for the knowledge. Anticipation skills. Anticipation skills really speaks to your ability to anticipate success as much as you anticipate failure. So anticipate success, prepare. Anticipate failure, defend. You can't say for any reason. So I'm not only being pragmatic, I'm being optimistic as well. You can't for any reason say that nobody's interested in my password. So I put my password on the internet. You know, this is my email and my password. Nobody's interested. Even putting something on the table is enough to attract. When you put sugar on the floor here, right now you can't see any ant, but put the sugar. Give us a few minutes. They will gather around it. What is your anticipation skills as a leader? Whether you're watching online or you would even see this, you know, from your office, government office, private sector office. What's your anticipation skills? How are you able to anticipate an element of success? So on the game of chess, when you're sitting on the board, you can anticipate the move that is likely to lead to a kill. You can anticipate. You don't move for moving's sake. You don't make efforts just for the sake of making it. Why are you in the business? Other people are succeeding. Is that a reason for going into that business? Anticipation skills means every move counts. Every move has a meaning. Whether it's academic, it's social, it's spiritual, it's political. I'm moving like this because I'm hoping that this door will open. That's why I move. Anticipate in defense. If I move like this to get this, what am I exposing here? What will I lose when I move? Anticipation skills. Our leaders need anticipation skills if they are going to rethink leadership. It's better to be pleasantly surprised than brutally shocked. And the both are dependent on your anticipation skills. Well, there are times things happen suddenly. But truth is, majority of things happen systematically. Just that nobody noticed. Success, if you believe success is not sudden, failure is also not sudden. Are we together? So, Nigeria, the catalyst for economic growth is anticipation skills. If you do it when everyone else has seen it, you're already late. Zoom moved from an unknown company to a middle line critical unicorn in just 1 year. Anticipation skills. I was telling my wife yesterday, Facebook has 1.6 billion users. 1.6 billion users. As of 2004, when they started, In their first year of operation, they had 1 million milestone. Today, 1.6 billion. And that's 2004. They had not even opened it up to the public. Around September 2007, when they decided everybody should have, can you just imagine the anticipation? If therefore our leaders, that is you, begin to have anticipation skills, things will change. I want to show you something about a very simple analysis in connection with rice and cassava in Nigeria. Nigeria consumes 7 million tons of metric tons of rice and produces 8 million metric tons of rice every year. Nigeria, however, also produces 59 million tons of cassava and consumes 6.6 million. If it were you, if you are the leader, which of them would you invest in? Which? Would it therefore surprise you to know the millions of dollars Nigeria has been investing in rice? We are not among the top 10 producers of rice in the world, in spite of all that investment. You must have heard that Nigeria doesn't import rice. Do you believe it? But okay, let us assume, without conceding, that Nigeria doesn't import rice. Is rice cheaper today than it was when we were importing it? Anticipation skills. Before the decision was made to begin to say, let us stop importing rice. This is how much we are spending in importing rice. Did we think about how much would we spend when we begin to grow it? Per square meter. Our average is less than the world average for rice production. China has the largest, followed by India. But when it comes to cassava, Nigeria is the largest in the whole world. If you want to exhibit anticipation skills, you should focus on your strengths. Leverage on your strength. If I consume 6 million and I produce 56 million, 59 million, can you imagine how much I have to give the world? If we improve our anticipation skills, one thing will happen. Every leader will begin to evolve. Because if I know that this move will pay more than what I will lose, what am I going to do? I will move. But if I know that this move will not pay compared to what I will lose, what will I do? I will adjust and rethink. And by doing so, I'm evolving. I know what works and I know what doesn't work. I cannot be executing a contract for the Ministry of Health and be importing brand new machines of 1980. Did you get that? They are brand new machines, but they are 1980. So I can assume that I have bought a brand new machine. But they are obsolete. It is that element of building up your trust so that you can be entrusted that enables you to begin to understand the value of your anticipation skills, both for success and for defense, that leads to your own evolution. So that you are the same person, but you're not where you used to be. When that happens, it leads to a revolution. This kind of revolution is not a revolution of IPOB. It's not a sectional revolution. Every revolution you're seeing is a cry for a better situation. A cry for inclusion. A cry for participation. A cry for a better life. If you know that the only two options you have are to be shot in the head or in the heart, you can't smile out of that negotiation. Can you? So if you're going to rethink leadership for economic growth, don't be primitive. Don't be basic. Don't be parochial, stuck in your ways. Don't blame the colonialists who were complicit. Don't stay in inertia and say, what can I do? Build on your trust so that you can be entrusted. Amazon, when they send you something and you report it's bad. My friend bought a player. He said it was bad. They say we'll return it. They gave him a new one. They refunded the money. Why will he not become the wealthiest man 2 days ago? And the gap between him and the second person has increased by over $30 billion. It's far. Anticipation skills. He's no longer chairman. He's moved away from being the MD of Amazon. So when a leader is sit tight, I want to be here till I die. You're already dying. Because if you're leaving, there is a bigger position. There's a bigger opportunity that will stimulate you. Rethinking leadership for economic growth is being like a flowing river that takes anyone on it to several places, makes an impact, and changes the world regardless of where it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Can we please give him another resounding round of applause? I was still caught up writing lots of notes because there were so many points. Powerful presentation. You know, and I think the things that really struck me was, you know, that history. Like I said, looks like all of this was done yesterday. And to be a part of this quiet revolution, you know, and making the race count, and not just being a rat race that doesn't count. We need to have strong anticipatory skills. Can we please give him another round of applause? Okay, so that I'm not representing your papers, I'm really so excited and my notes are so full. Thank you very much, sir. We have some books written by Mr. Charles Okeibunor. Very powerful books. They are up at the stand, at the registration stand for sale. Those online, if you are interested in the books, please drop a note to the host on the Zoom link. There's one of the books that talks about 10 common mistakes managers make. 10 common mistakes managers make. It's 2,500. It's available at the stand. We have #Life Class with Charles. It's available for 2,000 naira. And we have the Diary of Priorities, 3,500. The books are available at the stand for purchase. Thank you very much.
Also to join the roundtable conference, it's Mr. Charles Okeibunor. We also have one of the speakers who is here, who has just finished his own session, Mr. African Farmer Mogaji. Please give a round of applause for African Farmer Mogaji.
My name is Peter. Thank God for this program. I would address the question 1 to Mr. Charles and Mr. Femi. How tomorrow's leaders are today's follower. How can we get back the unity? And how can we use religion to influence the fate of our nation?
Things are going to change, and I believe very strongly. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Femi Adeoti. Now, over to you, Mr. Charles Okeibunor, for these responses.
Thank you very much, Director. The question that was asked about a statement I made that today's follower or today's leader
was yesterday's follower. You know, the interpretation is, if you are not ready today as a follower, you cannot be ready as a leader tomorrow. In Latin, they say, cuculus non facit monachum. The hood does not make the monk. Anybody can get the material for making hood and sew it and wear it and look like a monk. But that's not what makes a monk. A monk has a lifestyle, a character, an attitude, a behavior that makes him a monk. It's not the hood he wears. That's probably the last thing that marks him out. So if you're not an effective follower today, you cannot be an efficient leader tomorrow. If all you do today is, he didn't do it well. See the way he's talking as if we're his slave. If all you do today is just complain about the weakness of the leader, you are blindsided from your strengths, which you ought to amplify to augment the weakness of the leader in preparation for your own leadership role. Let me say that some things are predictable, but you don't rehearse for leadership. You prepare for leadership. Rehearsing for leadership is like, when they make me, I'm going to. No. Now that you are a follower, what are you doing now? Right now, as a follower, to demonstrate leadership. One of it is to know that this person is not doing it right. What can I do to close that gap? Now I know I'm learning from him what not to do. That's a learning. So for your mental health as a follower, I always say that you need 80% good news and 20% positive perspective of bad news. So you must see your leader in 80% positive light and then have a 20% positive perspective of his negative side. That is the only way that you can understand the concept of today's leader was yesterday's follower. When the buck stops with you, nothing is going to last forever. It doesn't matter how much a person clutches to an office, it is moving. It is moving. If it doesn't move, it will die in it and it will move. So it's almost inevitable. So it may stop at your buck. And when it stops, you may not, if you are of all you have done is criticism, suddenly you are now ready, they will start to criticize you, and then you are also not going to be able to deliver. The second question which he asks is the role of religion in unity. The only religion I know is Christianity. But for some reason, and because of interaction in the coaching world, which is global, I've interacted with Muslims, Hindus, and other religions. There is humanity in every religion. There is humanity in every religion. There's a human side of every religion. There are global principles. Don't take what doesn't belong to you. Treat your neighbor as you want to be treated. Be fair. So, religion is not an instrument for disunity if in sincerity there's no interest. The trouble with religion is the dilution with interest. It's using religion as a smoke screen to perpetuate personal interest. That is what makes religion a tool for disunity. Because if the law says nobody should drive one way, that's what the law says. You therefore cannot say, I was in a hurry to church, so I drove one way. The officer on the road
is a member of my church. He knows that I'm late. Is it not 7:30 we meet? He said, okay, pass. You're using religion. That's not what the Bible teaches you. So using that your 7:30 meeting to justify breaking the law is your personal creation. So if the other person passes and says, you people are not doing, it's not true, let's fight. And you say, religion is not what caused it. It was the dilution that caused it. So religion can be used as a tool of unity when there is no dilution. Thank you very much.
This goes to you, Mr. Charles. It says a lot of young adults are mentally starved. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of them feel undeserved of certain opportunities. And they fail to reach out and take hold of them. How can we change the mindset in our young adults? Let me take another one that you answer. I said, do you think as a leader to be, are risks not meant to be taken so as to have a sustainable economic growth?
Speaks to being mentally starved. It's a good question in the sense that Nigeria's population of the youth is nearly 65%. So if we are 240 million, you know what that means. However, this mental starvation is a reflection of what, again, we are feeding our minds. Whatever you starve dies naturally. And your behavior is a reflection of what is in your mind. The good news is that there is a wide range of information available to the youth today. The bad news is that most information is misinformation. Therefore, I have only 3 philosophies: think, learn, and teach. I don't even say learn before thinking. Think, because when you are exposed to so much information, you should be able to think, to sift which one is relevant to you and which one can manipulate you. Then, after you have curated that, you can now imbibe by learning that information and then sharing it. It is in sharing it that you build your people capital. A lot of young people today always think about what they can earn, not what they can learn. And when you have an earning attitude and not a learning attitude, it's like putting the cart before the horse. You can not learn without earning, but you can earn without learning. So opportunities come for young people. They pass on those opportunities because they first can't see what they will get from it. You get closer to people in church because they are rich or they look rich. You meet a wealthy person and within the first, second, third interactions, you're talking to them about your problems. Now, they have problems. Shielded in nice Mercedes cars, lovely suits, good wristwatches. Now, your responsibility is to earn their trust, to be able to share their problems, and you find a solution to those problems. That way, you can grow as a person. So, essentially, the mental starvation for me is not the lack of information. It is the eating of wrong information. So if I eat a lot of wrong information, instead of me to be living, I will be dying. That is my answer to the youth. Don't spend so much time on the internet comparing your classmates and seeing how good they are dressed and all that and saying, this life, no balance. No, no, no. If you look at your fingerprints, you have a unique fingerprint. There is a unique excellence and glory for you. Don't let anybody deceive you. Drew Houston said, don't worry about failure. You only need to be right once. The moment you key into your code of success, people will not ask you how many times you failed. They will begin to talk about those elements of success, which is what I want every young person. So you see an opportunity, go ahead as a solution. Don't go to the opportunity as a vulture. Now, speaking about risk to be taken for leadership, every life is a risk. It's only you don't know it's a risk. Do you know that eating is a risk? If you look at size of how many people choke when eating, you won't eat again. But everything you do is a risk. Coming here today is a risk. But you didn't know. So you just say, I'm going to church. You just moved. The risk you know is as a result of how you have been blindsided. You just hear risk, risk, risk. When I got out of school, I had made up my mind what I wanted. But then someone said to me, you have a second class upper. The corporate world will be interested in you. You better get into the corporate world now, because if you get too old, you won't be able to get in. No. But I thought I had created a model that if I continue to work on that model, it will eventually succeed. 1 year before I broke through, I had a visitor who came to my house and was telling me, look, your business idea is wearing you out. You are the operations manager. You are the account officer. It's wearing. Why not? I have this opportunity for you. Apply and take. I said, but there are some things that are about to metamorphose. He said, don't worry. Take the job later. You will come back to it. If Bill Gates had decided later, let me graduate from Harvard, later, I will come back, the idea of Microsoft would not have been. Within 6 months of that visit, we struck gold. It means that there is a risk. Just choose the one you want to take. Our father in the Lord said, there is no gain without pain. But there can be pain without gain. So choose your pain. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Okeibunor.